And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Survivor podcast. Ryan and I are back to recap episode 4 of Survivor 47. And my goodness, what an episode it was.
Dylan, it's almost like a metaphor. We were not here last week. You couldn't see us. We were kind of purple, and we're back, and Genevieve is back. We all emerged at the same time.
Yeah, we pulled a Genevieve. Couldn't podcast last week. Apologies about that. We're back this week. And what better episode to come back for? I mean, I watched this episode after I got off my night shift from work at like 1:30, 2 a.m. And I was so hyped about the tribal council. I mean, when was the last time that we had a pre-merge tribal council like this? It's been a long time.
Yeah, I should have prepared for this before the podcast. But yeah, I mean, last season, I feel like with the Banu arc, we didn't have anything like this. 45. I mean, other than like the Brando vote, but I think it may have been since like 42 when Jenny went out in that crazy tribal council. It's been a while since we've had a pre-merge tribal this crazy.
Yeah, it was absolutely wild. I'm super excited to get into it. And, it's so funny when I think back and I'm like, season 46, episode 4, it was the Banu vote out episode. Season 45, episode 4, it was the Sean quit episode. Season 47, episode 4, we have one of the best pre-merge tribal councils that we've ever seen. So really excited to get into it. Keyshawn goes home in this episode, which was beyond shocking. And if you told me before, if I had to like rank players that were most safe, I would have told you Keyshawn was like a shoo-in to make the merge. It's so funny because I think a lot of the, I don't want to say complaints, but like a lot of the pointing out of this season has been, we do not know who Genevieve is. We haven't barely seen her. She's had a couple confessionals here and there, maybe short, nothing crazy. We haven't really got content with her. And then next thing you know, I think that editing, not giving us any of Genevieve the first 3 episodes, made this blindside, this move by her, a lot better. So I give props out to the editors for that because it made it so amazing. You literally didn't see it coming. No one saw it coming, and it was unreal.
Yeah, it's always so tough with the editing because you can even go back to like the original seasons. Like you can go back to pre-season 40 and I'm sure we've had a lot of winners or a lot of great players emerge when they got nothing in early weeks. Like for example, Kim, and I know a lot of people are making a lot of Kim Spradlin comparisons with Genevieve, not just based on appearance, but just based on like amazing gameplay surge. But Kim, because just of how the One World season was playing out, Kim I don't think got much until the swap or the merge. Kim was really like not shown that much in the early parts of One World because it was like the Colton show for a while. But no, I mean Genevieve, I'm really excited to break down this move with you. And yeah, I'm shocked Keyshawn's gone. Like you were saying, if you asked before the episode who's good, we all would have thought Keyshawn was safe. Dylan, we're watching the episode. I would have thought up until like 9-10, like right before they went to tribal, I would have been like, oh, Keyshawn is still safe. It's going to be either Rome or Saul. And then this just comes out of nowhere. So I'm really excited to break down this move with you because I think it was the right one. I think this was the right move for Genevieve.
Yeah. So was it the right move? I believe it was. Based on how it sounds, I think that Genevieve was the 3rd or 4th in the teeny Keyshawn alliance, whereas her and Rome were like a tight duo. So I think it was the best move for her to keep Rome around. I think let's hop into the logistics of this move though, because there were so many different moving parts, and that's why it made it unreal. So the entire episode is about the Rome versus Saul showdown, basically, right? And to me, it was like, and I think again, this was so well edited because the entire episode, you were thinking we're either getting Rome out or we're getting Saul out this whole episode. And you know what? I honestly went back and forth throughout the episode. I'm like, I don't know if they would edit Rome this much for Rome to be the one that goes. Like he seems like a main character this season. Like why is he gonna go now? And then part of me was like, well, like I actually think he's gonna go. Like I really just think they have the numbers, and I don't think that Rome will be able to gather numbers in order, even with the steal vote, in order to save himself. So it kind of went back and forth for me in who I thought was going to go home, Rome or Saul. And then all of a sudden, we just get Genevieve out of nowhere. Genevieve, well, hold on. Let's take a few steps back. We had Sol, who with Keyshawn was and supposedly Genevieve was set on voting Rome. And then what they said is that they didn't need Teeny even if she lost her vote. Teeny had lost her vote, and we're going to get into that a little bit later in the episode, but Teeny loses her vote. So you only have 4 votes in this tribe without Teeny, right? But they figured that if there was a revote on a 3-1 vote, or I should say a revote on a 2-2 vote, if Rome had used a steal vote, they were still going to be able to revote and get Rome out. So it seems like a pretty foolproof plan. The fact that they were going to be able to get out Rome, they had the votes, even with Rome's steal vote, they had combated that. It seemed like a perfect plan. And then Genevieve took a step back and said, wait a second, why am I going with people that I am the 3rd or 4th in the alliance? And why am I not sticking to Rome, who is my number 1? Why am I not trying to save him? All he needs is basically one more vote with him to make all this happen because he's the steal vote. She goes to Saul, tells him about the move. She wants to turn it on Keyshawn. And the main thing here is that she wants to turn it on Keyshawn because Keyshawn had absolutely no problem throwing out Genevieve as the vote that, they were going to say it was Genevieve, that type of thing, right? So using Genevieve as the decoy vote really did not sit well with her. She completely turns the vote on Keyshawn, gets Sol on board. Sol and Rome end up voting the same way after all this. After they not that Sol had a choice really, but crazy. Sol ends up voting the same way. Keyshawn goes home. Rome at Tribal Council steals Keyshawn's vote. Just an epic Tribal Council. I think it was the right move for Genevieve. I think, you have to go forward with somebody you feel comfortable with. I feel pretty good that Rome is erratic in terms of gameplay, but I do feel like, now she's in a way better position on red specifically. First of all, Genevieve. And I think going forward in the game, she still has her number 1 there. And if Rome starts acting a little erratic, she could still always cut him loose. I don't think that at some point in the game she'll have issues, finding the votes to cut Rome loose if necessary. So I think, she gets out a major perceived potential power player in this game in Keyshawn, and she keeps her number 1 right move for Genevieve.
Yeah, I think short-term and long-term, like you said, it keeps her number 1 ally there. I mean, Rome's not gunning for her, so why would she want to take out somebody who is aligned with her? And like you said, long-term, she could always cut him, or if they get to the merge or a swap or whatever, then he's a perceived shield in front of her. People are going to go after Rome before they go after Genevieve. So I think long-term and short-term, it makes sense to keep him. And Keyshawn, like you said, he throws her name out. And even if because I think we saw in the episode, Keyshawn and Genevieve generally did want to work together. Keyshawn looked like Asia did. Keyshawn looked kind of hurt by this betrayal. So I don't think Keyshawn was ever really gunning after Genevieve, but it never feels good when someone throws out your name. People never like it. We were talking, you, me, and your brother. I was like, I almost wonder what's the right move here. Like, do you just randomly say to your alliance, okay, let's just draw sticks, and whoever gets the wrong stick, we tell them that's the decoy boot? Do we ask the person on the bottom who they want to vote for, and that's the decoy boot? I feel like suggesting a name really can blow up in your face, like we saw with Keyshawn. So I don't know what the best way to propose a decoy boot is, but that one comment from what we saw in the episode just clearly sunk Keyshawn's game. I don't think Keyshawn made many other mistakes beyond that, but I do think it was the right move, like we were saying, for Genevieve here. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy just how power shifts in this game. Teeny, and we can go back to last week for a quick second because I'm sad Asia left, and I clearly now in hindsight, getting rid of Asia was the wrong move for Teeny and Keyshawn there. But Teeny in a 2-episode span has gone from being a very big power player in this game to really losing a lot of equity.
Yeah, it's weird because I think the good thing if you're Teeny is that Rome has no power right now. Right, he's lost his idol. He's lost his steal vote, and I think that still, with Teeny, Sol is somebody that you could bring in now, and be like, all right, Sol is kind of on an island by himself. I'm kind of on an island by myself. Let's pair up and work together from here on out. So I think that there is that path and that natural fit for both of them. But yeah, I mean, what a what a rough episode for Teeny. I mean, literally, I thought she was potentially in one of the best positions in the game, all to crash down after what is a just wild sequence of events. So yeah, that's brutal for yeah.
And if Red loses again, now I don't know what's going to happen next week. And for those who don't watch the preview, we don't know any spoilers, of course. But all Jeff said was like, there's a new twist coming, so we don't know what's happening in terms of like a swap, a temporary swap. We don't know what's going to happen. But if go ahead.
I was gonna say I may have seen a rumor on what it is, but I don't want to say anything on the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah, you can mention it. You can mention it to me afterwards.
I was scrolling Twitter and I was and somebody. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it.
Okay,
I was scrolling Twitter and I saw potentially on what it is or speculation on what it is. So we'll see. It should be interesting if it is what I think it is, but I don't know.
Okay. But if, let's just say nothing crazy happens, even if it is like a swap or it could be temporary, let's just say the tribes stay the same basically and Red loses again. I feel like you would think, okay, well, now Teeny's on the outs. Teeny just lost Keyshawn. Genevieve and Rome are a duo. Genevieve is now picking up Soul as a number. Teeny's on the outs. But I don't know for sure if Teeny's going to go. I still feel like there's a chance that if Rome continues his antics and Genevieve goes, look, if I picked up Soul as a number now and Teeny's going to be loyal to me, maybe Rome could be a boot. So I don't think it's a given that if Red loses again, and Red clearly is now the disaster tribe, like I thought. I was right. Red is
like we all thought, yeah.
Like we all thought. Your brother said yellow, but I'm like, no, I think it's going to be Red. If they lose again, Teeny seems like the clear boot, but I also feel like there's still a fair chance it could be Rome. I feel like Saul has really gotten back into a better spot now that Genevieve has picked him up, and I'm happy because I like Saul. But yeah, no, this tribe is interesting. I think that, and again, it's crazy because advantages give you so much power. I mean, I think you both agree if Rome didn't have either or both of these advantages, Rome I think would have been gone on one of these first two votes because everybody seems annoyed with him, not just on the show, but in the exit press. If you listen to Asia and Keyshawn's exit press, they're both like, when they say, how is it to live with Rome? They both go, how much time do I have? Like they're just so fed up with Rome. So yeah. And also not to read into the edit because we don't like to read into it for winner equity or not, but I feel like they're not going to edit their winner to look like this. So I have a pretty good idea that I don't think Rome's going to be making be winning the season.
I'm curious to see how far he ends up going. It is going to be super interesting to see.
Yeah.
Now I think one of the most interesting parts of the season so far and looking forward, right, is you have so many potential free agents come merge time, right? And this is so rare, especially in the new era. We haven't seen it. There's been always like groups of 2, groups of 3. Okay, right now we have Teeny, who seems like Teeny could be a free agent, right? And then you have Soul, who also has nobody. He could be a free agent. Then you look at other tribes. You have Andy, who knows what's going to happen with him, even though he looks like he's kind of with Sam, but also like maybe he won't be there. Maybe he will be there. Maybe he'll be looking to jump. Who knows? Blue tribe, you got a lot of weird stuff going on there. So who knows if Kyle, Tiana, if they make it, like they could bounce around. I feel like there's so many free agents and there's so many new like duos or trios that could form and merge, and I'm super excited for that. Something that's pretty unique about this season, I feel like, going forward.
And not only that, Dylan, it's a good point because of how the alliances are shifting, and there's been a lot of betrayals. And Jeff has even said, like, oh, keep an eye on some betrayals this season. But not only do you have some free agents based on how the tribe dynamics have shifted, you have to keep in mind we've had 2 back-to-back episodes with the Journey. So now we have a couple of cross-tribal interactions. Now, I'm not, and we'll get into it as we go through the episode, I'm not a big Journey person. I'm not liking all these forced losing votes. Don't get me started on losing votes. But we've now had 2 different instances of Rome, Kyle, and Annika on last week's Journey, and then Andy, Caroline, and Teeny on this week's Journey. And this week they're tied together by the amulet, which we'll discuss in a little bit. But you now have all these free agents, like you mentioned, but some of these free agents are also on the bottom. And then some of these free agents are also in pretty good positions on their tribe. So I think that's the one part of the Journey that I like, because I've always loved Exile Island, where different people of different tribes come together and you get good cross-tribal interactions. I think, like you're saying, it's opening up a merge or a swap or whatever, where there's a lot of moving parts. I don't feel like this will be a season where we're seeing like pagongings, or we're seeing a lot of like, oh, we're going to stay I was gonna say one of the new tribes, but in the new era, the tribes are all 4-letter words. They're all so hard to keep. And Dylan, you know I know Survivor. Right? I can't keep track of all the names of all the new era tribes. They're all like 4 letters. It's not like they're orange strong, or they're not like purple strong or red strong or whatever it is. Like I don't think we're
It's
gonna
not
see.
It's not gonna be a season 45 situation where red.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. That was
Yeah.
that was Reba, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Reba.
we're not going to see like Reba strong. I think that these tribes, the blue, yellow, and red, I do feel like because of all the stuff with Gabe and Tiana and and Kyle, and then with Andy and Sierra and the girls and Sam, and now you have like Rome and stuff. Like it's not going to be like Reba strong. I feel like it's gonna be a lot of, like you said, Dylan, free agents and a lot of like shifting parts.
Yeah. It should be interesting to see. Let's go through some of the earlier parts of the episode. We have, we start off the episode, talking about Red, the Lavo tribe, stuff that we have not spoke about with them. Could you believe how hellbent Rome was in terms of not letting Soul even look for an idol? I think, like it's so funny because, he calls himself the godson, right? And yet he basically employs the babysitting tactic from Boston Rob in terms of just following Soul around completely, right? That scene was honestly tough to watch. It was tough to watch. I, if I were Soul, I don't know what I would have done, but I mean, I cannot believe he stayed kind of so calm in that situation. That was an insane move by Rome. And I think like Rome just he seems to just have absolutely zero social game. And it's so funny because even when he went to apologize to Soul later in the episode, when they ended up like technically voting together, it was like the fakest apology of all time. He has absolutely no interest in social game. He's just out there playing as hard as he could. And I cannot believe he did that with Soul. Like, just absolutely ridiculous. So that was certainly a major part of the episode, a major part of the early episode.
Yeah, Dylan, I'm going to choose my words carefully because we are a podcast, and we're not huge, but people do listen to us, and it probably gets out there on the Survivor community. So I'll be very careful. But I find Rome incredibly annoying. I really find Rome really annoying, and I'm sure he's a lovely person outside the show. But I would get, if I was Saul, like you said, I don't know what I would do. I would get extremely annoyed, not just because of how he's acting, because like we saw last week, and we didn't cover this, but last week they had the challenge, and Rome wanted to do the first leg, and Saul was like, Rome, can I go first? I wanted maybe do this, and Rome's like, no, I want to go first, and if you don't let me do it, I'm going to be very annoyed. And Saul's like, all right, fine, just go, fine. So Rome just has a lot of these antics, and Dylan, it's the age difference for me that just gets me. That Rome is 30 and Saul is 43, and if I had somebody that was 13 years younger than me, not just following me, because again, Survivor's been around for 47 seasons. We've seen people babysit, we've seen people like follow and shadow and stalk, and that's in the rules. It's fine. I mean, if you're on the bottom. Sorry, if someone's on the bottom and you want to keep an eye on them so they don't get an idol, or if you know that they have it, that's fine. It's in the rules. But to be someone's like shadow, where you're literally like right up against them as they're going through the jungle, and then they ask you to leave them alone and you say no, and then you threaten them, or should I say ultimatum them, and say, hey, if you don't stop looking, you're going to be the vote, and then threaten him and say, oh, and by the way, if you don't give me your shot in the dark, you're going to be the vote. It just comes off, like you said, no social awareness. It comes off as incredibly demeaning. And I just think it shows that like everybody on this tribe, including his ally in Genevieve, is just extremely annoyed with him. And I don't know if that means he's going to be the early merge boot, because I feel like in the new era, the early merge boot is somebody who is like a consensus target, or somebody like on the bottom of their tribe, or like everybody at the merge in the new era can rally behind a common vote, it seems like. So that's why it could be Rome at the early merge, or if he's just annoying people at camp, you could easily just drag him to the end. But yeah, this, like you said, was very hard to watch. Just Saul just trying to get some foothold in the game, and Rome just, to be honest, like just belittling him every chance he got.
Yeah, unless he like bends his way through the game, then I can't see him lasting long once we hit a merge. I just can't. And in terms of Genevieve, I think she's very, very like aware of how Rome comes off. which is super important. And she's right. You have to be careful when you're working with somebody like that, because
Yeah.
let's just say Rome finds another idol, everyone knows he has an idol. It's like, oh, well, what move could we do to weaken Rome? We could just get out Genevieve, right? So
Yeah.
you are in danger when you play the player like that. And then again, of course, if you're relying on Rome as your number one, he gets voted out because he's seen as such a big target. Yeah, it shields you, but then what about the rest of the game, right? So it's like, I think Genevieve's aware of that. I'm curious to see how she navigates it, because it's definitely not an easy situation for her. Now let's move to the yellow tribe, which we have not spoke about at all. We even got to yellow and blue yet. So let's just discuss them. We didn't get too much of blue this episode. We did get a decent amount of yellow. So let's talk about yellow first.
Yeah.
We still have the Sam Sierra duo, where Andy's like kind of with them. It looks like he's with Sam. Sierra doesn't want that. The issue here, right? The issue here is that Sierra really wants Andy out, and Sam is like hellbent basically on keeping Andy in the game, right? So weird situation going on here. And then you have Sierra. By the way, I just want to point out from this episode, Sierra. Wait, I'm reading the chat right now. We have a Rome the host in the comments.
Sorry, Rome, love you. Sorry. That's on me.
Anyway, so Sierra, okay, with Sam, now she's with the girls, Breadwinners Alliance, right?
Yep.
I think what really struck me about Sierra in this episode is that she is such a good liar. She is somebody that's dangerous in this game. You know who she reminds me of? She reminds me of Kelly from season 45. I think, like, if you remember in 45, Kelly at this point in the game, started to become like a really, really big social threat. She was playing the middle really well on blue. Do you remember? It was like her and Brando in the middle. Then Brando ended up getting voted out. Then she was by herself, but she was kind of still in the middle. They get to emerge, and then everyone realizes, like, oh my God, Kelly's like the biggest social threat in this game, right? Kelly ends up being blindsided. That's kind of how Sierra's reminded me of. She's like playing the middle really well in her tribe. And what honestly really caught my notice when I was watching this episode is that Sierra, she's an incredibly good liar. And I think the girls both think they're with her. Sam and Andy both think they are with her. And that's a dangerous spot. That's a dangerous player. So Sierra, really good. And then you have Sam and Sierra, who are kind of butting heads a little bit as they discuss they need alliance therapy. I think Sam was like not happy that she told Andy about the quote unquote breadwinner's name, right? And she didn't tell Sam about that. So there was a little bit of a rift there. I'm curious, do you think this Sierra Sam alliance is one that goes deep into the game, or is it kind of just a pre-merge thing? Because they cannot seem to agree on a single thing in this game.
Sierra and who?
Sierra and Sam.
Oh, so I think it's interesting because if you go back to last week, which I know we didn't get to cover last week, that Andy made that move that I believe Emily made in 45, where she gave Sabaya, or she did the same thing with the shot in the dark, where she offered the shot in the dark as like currency to say, hey, as a sign of trust, I'm going to offer this to you. And that made people feel good about Emily. And Andy did the same thing with Sierra last week. So just to rewind, Andy says to Sierra, I'm going to offer you my shot in the dark as a sign of trust. She doesn't accept it, but she goes, that makes me feel better about Andy. He's kind of a loose cannon, but I am open to an alliance now with him. So to jump back ahead to this week, Sierra is obviously closest with Sam. The girls are making the Breadwinners Alliance, like you mentioned, but she still sees her and Sam as a tight duo, and Sam feels the same way with Andy kind of as a piece that he's bringing along. But I could see Sam's point where he's getting a bit nervous that Sierra and Andy are getting closer, maybe more than he thought, because maybe Sierra would have eventually told him about the Breadwinners, but she did go to Andy first with this information. And, she had to have known that Andy was maybe going to run back to Sam and tell him this. And even though I think that they both could have maybe handled the situation a bit differently, her telling Andy first and then Sam how he, confronted Sierra, but I do think they will still be on the same page. This to me seems like just a little blip in the Alliance radar. I think they'll be fine. But obviously, Dylan, it wouldn't surprise me if a couple things happen with Yellow. Number one, wouldn't surprise me if, Sam is like, oh, I especially got to get rid of Annika and Rachel, not just to break up their alliance, but also because that takes out some options for Sierra. And then additionally, what wouldn't surprise me is if eventually, Sierra tries to pick up Andy, or let's just say they get to the merge and Sam starts to get other, alliances being brought to him, I could see both of them fighting over Andy. And it's funny because they're a trio in a way, but Andy's going to be that swing piece, and I'll be really curious to see what happens with this Yellow Tribe. Now, they haven't lost since that first week. They've looked actually pretty good since their first challenge loss. But I will say this tribe has a lot of interesting dynamics. But if Yellow does happen to lose next week, I do think Annika and Rachel are still in the most danger.
Yeah, I think they're in the most danger. It's so funny, by the way, because Sierra tells Andy, like, oh, yo, like, keep this under wraps. Like, don't tell anyone about the Breadwinners Alliance. And he immediately runs back to Sam. And I'm like, this guy, as every single time that Andy is like thrown a bone, he just completely messes it up almost. And I'm like, he just can't get like out of his own way. It's pretty funny because I think he's actually done a really good job of like getting his footing back. It's kind of like, I think he might be having like kind of a little bit of a Emily type arc from season 45, but also like every time he gets thrown a bone, I'm like, oh, why do you have to run back to Sam with that? Now you're just causing issues between Sam and Sierra. Like that's your three right there, man. That Yellow Tribe, man. I think the Yellow Tribe is like probably the most like entertaining to watch when we're just watching like camp life. Super, super funny to watch. Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out. It looks like that we actually had Rome in the comments here.
Which is why I felt bad.
I thought it's funny because I thought I thought it was like, you get like a lot of people, like especially in the Survivor community, that make just like fan accounts. And it looks like we actually have Rome. So I'm gonna read it out loud. We have Rome commenting here. He says, everything you saw there, post immunity, post journey, and post ultimatum. We had less than an hour. To that point, that's why he was being followed. Not sure why it was out of order. Interesting, right? So it's like
that makes sense.
So it's like that's how. I guess that's super interesting, right? Because we saw that like to open the episode, literally, right? Mm-hmm. So they set it up where in the episode you're kind of doing a whole Rome versus Saul thing, right? And apparently this was all less than an hour to go. So that's super interesting and an interesting tidbit about that edit there. And also thank you, Rome, for watching. Yes. All right, back to the episode. Blue Tribe. We have Tuku. That is the name of the Blue Tribe. So we really got like basically nothing from them this episode, like almost nothing, next to nothing.
Yeah, we got a lot more last week from Blue, and then this week was just one scene essentially from Blue.
We did, and it's so funny because now that like I'm looking back and I'm reading our notes from the episode, it's like this was low-key one of the funniest scenes. This is probably one of the better scenes of the season with that happened on Blue that we saw, and yet it's completely swept under the rug, forgotten because of everything else that happened this episode. So Sue thinks people are underestimating her and just starts immediately running to go find an idol. Because if we remember correctly, the last time Blue went to Tribal Council, Gabe just played his idol, so the idol goes back into play potentially. Sue knows that. Sue goes and tries and runs and find an idol. She finds it, chops down at the map. She gets a map. She chops down the vine at the tree that you're supposed to, and a huge bucket of paint just falls, right? All over. Idol right in the middle of it. And immediately she's panicking. She's trying to sweep up the red paint, covering it with dirt. She actually did like a really good job of covering up all the red paint on the ground, and kind of did an okay job of cleaning up herself, but there was a little bit on her chin, which if you're out there, you don't have a mirror. How are you supposed to see that you have some
it's hard
paint on your chin, right? And then she was caught a little bit by Tiana and Caroline, who were like, oh, why you have like blood on your chin. And she's like, I was like playing with the machete. I cut my finger or something.
I
Like
bit my tongue.
it.
Yeah.
She was like, she had like 3 different stories. I cut my finger. I bit my tongue. I was like, I don't know. And
Yeah.
they thought they were a little bit suspicious of it. Yeah, I'm super interested to see. It's so weird because I feel like Sue is being underestimated by her tribe, right? I think that is clear to me. And like, she is like, I think she's playing it up a little bit to like motivate herself, but she is, right? I think that they may have been suspicious, but at the end of the day, to me, I feel like from what we saw, Tiana and Caroline, they'll basically just be like, you know what? It's Sue. Like, we don't have to worry about her. So while they said they were suspicious, I don't really know how much they suspect that she actually has an idol. Maybe they suspect that she was looking. I don't know how much they actually know that she has an idol. I think it's a tough situation.
Well,
first of all, I want to commend Jeff because I love the twist of having the paint with the idol, right? I think it's super interesting. I think it's unexpected. I think it's fun to watch. And I also have to give Sue credit because that is a near impossible spot, right? It's a near impossible spot to deal with. I guess she should have probably just ran to the water, but like it would have been suspicious if she's just like sprinting to the water. So it was definitely a tough situation for her. And if she's like walking to the water, you don't want to be seen by someone else with like all covered in paint. So going to the well was probably the right move. There's so many different things, but props to Sue. Weird situation. I think she pretty much made the best of it, minus like a couple small slip ups on her story.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is one of those classic things where if you're a viewer, this was great. I agree with you. This was really fun to watch just to see her cut down the rope and then just the paint just falls and splatters. So as a viewer, this is very fun. And I agree with you that Jeff gets credit for this. If I was a player, Dylan, I would be extremely frustrated. And that's just kind of one of those egg on your face moments that you can't really avoid. It's kind of like, this is going to be not a great like example, but you remember in Islands of the Idols where Jamal was walking and like the advantage or whatever was just like dangling in front of his face, and then like he walked into it, he went to Islands of the Idols, he lost his vote, and then he's voted out. Like it's one of those egg on your face things where it just happens to you in Survivor, and like Tom Westman always says, Survivor has a lot of luck, you can't avoid it. But if I was Sue, I would have been like she said, she's like I would have been pissed at Jeff. But I thought she did a pretty good job, like you said, of trying to clean it up. She went she got most of it, like you said. She got some in her hair, some on her chin, but she got like 90% of it. I think you're right. If you run to the water to wash it off, that makes sense. But if someone sees you running to the water covered in like red, it's going to look very suspicious. And she did get most of it. And I want to commend you as well with the editing because, like you said, the editors have been doing great this season. They say, "Oh, Sue's emotional, Sue's kind of upset," and then they transition to this red. Now, if you would think on the blue tribe, if there's an advantage, it might be covered in blue paint. So if you're seeing red paint, it doesn't look like paint sometimes. And then they're like, oh, I'm actually kind of worried about Sue. So it was really fun editing. Obviously, I think Tiana and Caroline sniffed that something was up, and they're going to kind of keep an eye on this now. But yeah, no, obviously Sue has an idol. And Dylan, this is not a Beware where it's now one of these like shot clock idols. This is not like an advantage. This is just a pure idol final 5. So,
that's huge.
Yeah, so Sue now has the only actual like idol in the game minus these amulets, right?
Yes.
Because Rome used his episode 1.
Gabe used his.
Did anyone get the yellow idol or no?
I think Sam has it, right?
Sam has it, yes, but they haven't lost since he got it.
Yes.
Right? So Sam has his idol, but it's only good for 1 vote, I think.
I think he only took the 1 vote, yeah.
Gabe used his, that's done. So Sue now has the idol on blue, and Rome used all his stuff. So it's just Sam's idol, Sue's idol, and then the amulets.
Yes, and I'm excited. Let's touch on the challenge quick. Pretty much the only story is Rome not getting a single piece, which I think was very funny to watch, by the way.
If you're still watching, Rome, you did great.
Yeah. That was pretty much the only story from there. Rome doesn't get a single piece. They lose. Challenge, I thought was fine. Nothing like too much to highlight with that. And then I really just want to get to the journey. That's what I want to talk about, right? Because I know there'll be some opinions, takes, controversial takes. Andy, Caroline, Teeny on the journey. Okay, so they they all go to this like island type thing where there's just nothing there. As soon as I saw like there was like nothing there, my immediate thought went to like the Maria Jelinski, who was, I don't even remember who else was on that journey at the first episode of 46, but that was like where they had to like roll it. Oh, Tevin Jelinski Maria, first episode, season 46, where they had to do like the game, or whatever, where there was like nothing there and it was like them three talking. That's kind of what came to my mind. But basically they had to turn over the timer, read the note. They turn over the timer and the note says that if they could get one person to give up their vote, then they all get an amulet. If they all give up their vote, I mean, if nobody could decide on who gives up their vote, or nobody gives up their vote, then they all lose their vote. So it was a weird situation. You get the amulet if one person gives up their vote, but if nobody could decide and the time runs out, then they all lose their vote. No one gets the amulet. Now, what I've mainly seen the debate here. So the way that this amulet works, and the amulets always get super confusing. The way that this amulet work is there's obviously one, each person has an amulet. They all need to be played together in order for it to form one full idol. Then if one person is eliminated, then I believe you just need two to form the idol. And then if both people, 2 out of 3 are eliminated, then the one left is a full power idol. Part of me still thinks this is a disadvantage to have, because one, you either tie yourself down to working with people, or you put a massive target on your back from the other 2 people. So to me, it's like, and I think I saw Drew from season 45 tweeting about this. Is it worth it just to like, is it worth it just to all sacrifice your vote for one tribal council in order to just not have this amulet in play and not have this amulet? Like, is that the right move here? Because I don't know if I'd want to have that amulet if I'm them. That's all.
Yeah, it definitely puts like a bounty on your head. It really does seem more of a disadvantage than an advantage. Now, Dylan, the interesting thing is that this almost seems like a more straightforward amulet, because I remember in 45 when it was Austin, Kelly, and Jay, and you can keep me honest on this, I want to say it was, if you all come together and 3 use it, it's an extra vote, which by the way was never gonna, they were never going to come together for an extra vote. It was almost like just you're going to target each other. But you all come together for an extra vote. If it's just 2 of you left, you come together for a steal a vote. And then if it's one of you, it's an idol, which again, it was always going to be an idol no matter what. I think because production may have realized that was just never going to happen, this seems more straightforward. It's basically like you said, if you all come together and use it, it's an idol. And if 2 of you come together once that other person's gone, it's still an idol. So no matter what, this is straight up an idol. It just comes down to who's left in the game and who wants to use it. Now, looking at this collection of people, do I see Andy, Caroline, and Teeny coming together? I could see in a world, just based on what I know about them and how they play the game, and also, Andy's popular in the Survivor community. Asia obviously was popular in the community. I don't know if Teeny knows who Andy is from like the Survivor community, but I could see Andy and Teeny for some reason if Caroline gets knocked out of the game, which I don't know if she's going to, but if she got knocked out, I could see potentially Andy and Teeny coming together to use it. But with this 3-person group, I don't know if I could see it happening. I'll give it back to you. I still think that it does more harm than good. It puts a target on your back. But again, I also just hate that it forces people to lose their votes in general. But
here's the thing. One, I think everyone's on the same page that I don't want people like losing votes. I'm kind of over it, to be honest with you. But like, other than just ignoring that and thinking about just strictly what the situation is here, when are 3 people post merge from 3 different tribes coming together to use an idol? 0. You know what? If I'm wrong and I jinx this, then I will gladly talk about it when it happens. There's 0% chance, 0.0% chance that Caroline, Andy, and Teeny are coming together to use the amulet for one of them 3 when they're all together and working together as an idol. Like there's 0% chance that happens, right? Mm-hmm. 2, it's more likely, but they would have to be like a tight duo. The likely scenario I'd say here is that Caroline, who is really tight with Sue, and then because she's really tight with Sue, is also really tight with Gabe, that's probably what's going to happen come merge. Caroline's going to say, oh, well, hey guys, I have this amulet. If we target Andy and if we target Teeny, then this thing could become powerful and be used for us three. And then they're going to target Andy. They're going to target Teeny. And that's the most likely scenario here. And it goes all three ways, right? If you're Andy, you're going to Sam and being like, hey, we could use this amulet in our power, but we got to target Caroline and we got to target Teeny. And then Teeny is going back to Soul or whoever is her ally at the moment. And she's saying, well, I have this. This could become an idol for me one day. Whoever I'm working with, let's vote out Caroline. Let's vote out Andy. So I really think that like if you're giving percentage chances of which way this ends up going, whether they end up working together or whether they end up targeting each other, I would probably say it's like an 80% chance they end up using it to target each other.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that you brought up, which is an interesting point, is that is there any world where somebody says, no, I don't want to consent to you giving up your vote, and you tank the advantage and no one gets it? Like you mentioned, does it almost make sense if you all just lose your vote and no one gets it? Dalton Ross actually was talking to Jeff about this, and Dalton said the same thing. Dalton's like, Jeff, is it in the rules where you all have to agree on a person? Because if Caroline didn't want Teeny to get it for some reason, could Caroline have just said, no, I don't consent to that, and then no one gets it? And Jeff's like, yeah, like Jeff said, basically, if they didn't all agree, they all were going to lose their vote. So I don't think that would have happened because clearly no one wants to lose their votes. But imagine if this was like later in the game, or this was later in the pre-merge where you've already seen like, oh, I see how the red tribe is. I see how the yellow tribe is. If there's somebody that you didn't want to get the amulet, like for example, here's an easy example. Everybody perceives Sam and Sierra as a threat. And maybe it's like, oh, that's a power duo. We don't want them getting more power. I could have seen a scenario where Sam is on that journey, and let's just say it's still Caroline and Teeny. And Sam goes, all right, guys, I'll give up my vote or whatever. But Caroline says, I don't want Sam to even have an advantage. She already has Sierra as a tight duo. I could have seen a scenario where they say, you know what, no, let's just all lose our votes. No one gets an idol. But in this group of people, Teeny's going to tribal. Teeny was never going to give up their votes. Andy is in a very precarious spot because, like you said, he's kind of floating between alliances and people still don't trust him. He can't lose his vote. I'm actually a little surprised Caroline, who's in the best spot, didn't want to give it up. But again, nobody wants to lose their vote. But I felt bad for Teeny because Teeny's like, I'm the one going to tribal, I shouldn't have to give up my vote. And I agree, nobody should ever have to give up their votes. But like Teeny was saying, if they're all going to lose their vote anyway and time's running out, you may as well get something out of it.
Here's one thing to consider. If who knows how long that was, I'm going to assume the timer was like a 3 or 5 minute timer or something, right? If you're out there on the island and you have an opportunity to get an advantage, right? And it's being advertised as an advantage. To me, it's so hard for them to just in real time be like, you know what? We don't want this amulet, right? Like, this is really like, it's tough to like think through, like we're thinking through the entire process of an amulet. In what ways is it a disadvantage? In what ways is it an advantage, right? And you don't really have time to think all these options through when you just turn the timer and then read the note, right? So I think for them, it's like, it's hard to in real time be like, this is a disadvantage. I'm willing to give up my vote because it's such a disadvantage. Like, I don't think in the moment you're just thinking to yourself like, all right, we got to think who's willing to give their vote. We got to get the advantage, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and I don't want to lose my vote, right? So it's just it's easy to talk about from here. Definitely hard in real time. I do think it's a disadvantage for all three of them, though, if I had to predict.
Yeah, well, because now going forward, because the thing, and now Dylan, I'm remembering because I do this every season. Once we start getting to all these advantages, I need to put in the notes like who has what, just to keep track of it all. Because now heading into next week, Teeny's already went to tribal council, so Teeny now has their vote back, but Caroline and Andy don't have their votes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, okay. So Andy doesn't have a vote.
Wait. Andy.
Wait. I'm sorry. Andy has a vote.
Andy has a vote. Caroline has a vote.
Correct. Teeny lost it, but Teeny got it back already.
Teeny lost it and got it back already. Right.
Okay. So next week, I don't think anybody has a lost vote next week.
But you're right. You're right that I think Sam's idol has been almost like completely forgotten about. He has one idol to play for one tribal council. So that's a thing.
So yes. Yeah. So here's the thing though. So that's only good for his next tribal. But it doesn't expire at the merge, right? Like that's not like a pre-tribal shot clock, right? It's just whenever Sam goes to tribal next.
Yes.
So he could use that at the next yellow tribal council, or he could use
Or
that
if
at
you use it
the
to merge.
merge.
Yeah.
But it's only good for one.
Yeah. See, but
Okay.
you gotta be super careful. If that ends up lasting, to the merge, then do you really want to play an idol the first tribal of merge? Like I'm not even talking about like just the perception of it. Like everyone's together for the first time. You got 12 people that are merged, 10 people that are merged whenever they merge. I assume it's gonna be 12 or whatever, 13 in mergatory, whatever.
Yeah.
You're really gonna use an idol at like the first time that everyone's together. It puts such a huge target on your back. If I'm him, right? If I'm him and I do not go to tribal until mergatory or until we're fully merged or whatever, then if I do not have to use the idol, I am not using the idol and I'm just letting it expire because you got to keep, especially if you're a player like Sam. Sam is just like, if you look at him physically, he's going to come off as one of the more like biggest threats on the beach. He's very like social, loud also. You cannot raise your threat level like that if you don't have to. So I'm very curious to see how he plays it off.
Well, I somewhat agree. I think if Sam is in Mergatory and Sam is on the losing side, I think you have to use it. I don't want to basically have a 1-in-6 shot of heading out. So I think Sam would use it there. I see your point where even if you misplay an idol and you didn't need it, it still puts a target on your back because it shows that you know how to you found it, you know how to look for it. So I agree. I almost still wonder, like Gabe just wasted his idol in the first episode, and Gabe even said like, "Hey, I saw 46. I'm not." Sorry, that was episode 2. But Gabe's like, "Hey, I saw 46. I'm not gonna go home with an idol in my pocket." I almost feel like because everybody has seen last season and they saw up to the, I think, Tiffany or Venus votes, they saw like 4 people in a row go out with these idols, and they also saw it happen to Jem. So I feel like even though, yeah, Sam had an idol, people saw that he played it. Okay, it's going to put a target on his back. I almost feel like because of what happened the season before, it almost just seems like, hey, I just kind of blew it. Oh, I don't know how to use an idol. It may not be the worst thing in the world. I could also see Sam, just because of, like you said, how well insulated he is. If people are starting to look at Andy, I could see him just using it on Andy potentially. But yeah, no one knows about it other than... Actually, wait, but I think Dylan, it doesn't like everybody know about it. Like I think Sam and Sierra got the idol together, but Annika and Rachel, he told them that he found
everybody knows. Everybody knows about it. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes it a little bit, that makes it tricky then.
Yeah, it's a weird scenario. It's tough. I think in real time, I thought Sam made the right move by keeping it for just one tribal council because like a lot of people knew about it, and now when I look like. It's so tough because in hindsight, I think that now the right move would have been to go for the full idol. But like in real time, I was like, so many people know it's probably worth it just to use for one tribal council. But now I think he's in kind of a weird spot with that. So it's always interesting to see hindsight here with stuff like this. But I literally, until you brought it up, completely forgot that Sam had that. And I think that most of the viewers probably forgot at this point also.
Yeah, well, and that's why I had to do a quick tally because it's just so hard to keep track of who has what. I think unless you had anything else to bring up in the episode, the only other thing I think I had from the episode was just to go back to the Red Tribe for one quick second. And this just goes back to Keyshawn because I know we talked about it quickly. I mean, do you feel like when Keyshawn was proposing the split votes, because they didn't need Teeny's vote to do Genevieve and Rome on, sorry, see, this is why it gets so confusing. Genevieve and Soul on Rome. No. Why am I blanking on this? Teeny didn't have a vote. Rome had to steal a vote.
Yeah, so Teeny didn't have a vote. Rome had to steal a vote. Genevieve had a vote. And who am I leaving out? Teeny no vote.
Yeah.
Rome steal a vote. Keyshawn vote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, sorry, now I figured it out. So what you were saying, what Keyshawn was planning, and obviously this obviously got blown up with Genevieve, but
yes.
Keyshawn was thinking with 5 people on the tribe, if Teeny lost their vote, if Keyshawn and Genevieve vote Rome, and they get Soul to join them, even if Rome stole Soul's vote, it would be 2-2. Okay, there we go.
And then you just re-vote and vote out Rome, right?
Okay,
right.
So then Keyshawn's plan, actually thinking about it, was pretty like foolproof in that way. His biggest problem, it just seems like, was that he threw out Genevieve's name. Now, obviously, if they told Sol the decoy vote was like teeny, or they told Sol like, hey, we haven't decided on a name yet, it's like, does Keyshawn stay, or do you think that like, I mean, does it really come down to just him throwing out Genevieve's vote was like the only reason?
I think it had to be like maybe Genevieve hearing her name like really like brought out like the gamer in her and like was like, oh well, like I should be trying way harder to keep Rome my number one ally.
Yeah.
Or maybe it actually just switched it, and she was like, I can't be having that. And like maybe to her it was a signal that like I'm not really in this alliance. He's okay with me going home, right?
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, maybe it probably was not the 100% factor. It probably was a big factor though. So
yeah. And the last thing I'll say is what's it called? I think I forgot. It was another thing about the red trap. I was just going to say that, like, yeah. Oh, sorry. You said signal. The word signal is what made me think of it. So obviously, before Tribal, we see that Rome tries to apologize to Sol, and Sol's kind of not really feeling it, and we never see them get on the same page. Obviously, during Tribal Council, Jeff's like, "Are you going to steal Sol's vote?" Rome's like, "I'm going to steal somebody's vote," and then he steals Keyshawn's vote. Now, actually, I thought for a second that he was still going to steal Sol's vote, Dylan, and they've done this before, do a switcheroo where they steal Sol's vote, but they use Sol's vote to get out Keyshawn. They've done that before. Just because they steal your vote doesn't mean they're getting rid of you that night. So I thought that was still a possibility, but I guess that told Sol, hey, if Rome's not stealing my vote, that's going to signal to me, okay, Genevieve's plan is a go-ahead. We're going to vote out Keyshawn, because I don't think we ever saw them get on the same page.
Yeah, I guess also, I think just honestly, like if you're like either way, the move works, right? No matter whose vote as long as you and Genevieve are together and Tina doesn't have a vote, the move is going to work no matter whose vote you steal.
Yeah.
For the entertainment value of the episode and for the like just fireworks of it, stealing Keyshawn's vote is way cooler if you're voting him out. So shout out.
It's way cooler if you're voting him out, but I would have also, for the entertainment, Dylan, I'll challenge you for the entertainment. I would have loved to have seen Rome steal Sol's vote. Sol starts like getting his bag. He's like, all right, I'm gone, going home. That's it. And then Keyshawn goes, and to see like the jaw drop on Sol. So that would have been, I think, even better entertainment TV. But yeah,
maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
Still fun to watch.
Yeah. I don't think I have too much else this episode. And you got anything else we wanted to add before we headed out?
No, that's it. I'm offline. We'll connect. I'm really curious about that theory that you mentioned that you saw online about what's going to happen with next week's twist. I'll be very curious. But no, just to echo what you said at the start of the episode, I thought this was a really great one. People have already started saying this could be one of the best pre-merge episodes. And I'll be honest, Ellen, at first I wasn't paying attention because I was watching the Mets game. I think you were watching the Yankees. Like, I wasn't fully paying attention. I just saw like how it ended. But then going back and rewatching it a few days ago, I was like, oh, wow, this really on the Red Tribe, because they were the main focus, of course, just seeing it hop around from Sol to Rome to Sol to Rome, back then over to Genevieve to Keyshawn. Like, it really was a great episode. Genevieve has emerged. I'm really curious to see how the season plays out. But so far, I think, and what's the last thing I will say? I think we're off to a good start, because I didn't think I really considered would you say we've had 4 blindsides, Dylan? John, TK, Asia, and Keyshawn all could be considered like a blindside. Like they all were not expecting it.
Yeah.
Whereas in the last few seasons, we've had the quits, we've had like the chalk Banu vote. Like, we haven't had a season lately where all 4 people have been surprised on some level.
Yep. No, I agree.
It's been good.
I agree.
Yeah.
So it's been really good this season. Excited. Rome, if you are watching still, feel free to come back next week. And that's all I got for today.
Yes, thank you, Rome, for commenting. I'll be kinder next week. I know I did it to myself, because the minute I said, oh, we're a small podcast, no one's watching. Like, well, obviously I did it to myself.
That was very funny
all the time. But thank you for commenting, Rome, and everybody. Look forward to next week for episode 5. Grab your torches and head back to camp.
Good night.